Hello from Deep Creek Lake, where our family has taken a few days of vacation time. This week, Clint Henderson from the Points Guy Pinch Hits is my podcast co-host. He was able to try out the brand new American Airlines Business Class product. He got to visit Slovenia, a country I have not been to yet. We're hearing all about that. A little bit of KLM Business Class as well. We talk Chase and the new Chase Sapphire business card, and Clint gives me some advice about a little bit of a problem I had with Hertz on my recent rental. All that on this week's episode of the Miles to Go podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. We are taking the Folgers challenge again, and we have secretly replaced my co-host Richard Kerr with a much more photogenic Clint Henderson. We literally have him in the hot seat because his air conditioning is turned off in the very hot New York City apartment. But with all the exciting travel that Clint has, I couldn't think of a better person to fill in for Richard while he is over in Europe. Mr. Henderson, how the heck are you?
I'm good. I've got one whole day in New York City before I'm off home, so it's very exciting.
Well, we're going to get into where you're going, where you've been, but where are you going next?
So I am actually going with the Points Guy team over to Seattle, and we're gonna tour Alaska Airlines HQ, and then Boeing is also going to give us some access.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, that is exciting. I will live vicariously through another of Clint's travels. But we got a lot to cover today. You have been lucky enough to try out the new AA Business Class on their 789, so we're going to talk about that. You also notched another country, Slovenia, that I have not visited yet. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we got some other stuff, some other interesting stuff going on with you. A little bit of housekeeping. You can email us, ed@pizzainmotion.com. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. I am at Ed Pizza on all those social media channels. You are Clint page 1, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
See, a good podcast host would have all that written down ahead of time, and they would have interviewed their guest, but I just know you can roll with it, Mr. Henderson.
It's all good. Yeah, Clint Page, the number one, and it's Page. That's my middle name, actually.
I didn't know that. You are, and for just for the record, I will just say it here. You are my favorite Clint Henderson, so you are number one on my list.
Yeah, there's not a whole heck of a lot of them.
So where to start, man? I'd say let's try and go a little chronologically. So for folks who haven't seen it yet, American Airlines released a new business class product that, at least from the appearances, looks really sexy. And you got a chance to fly that over to Europe. So I'd love to hear your first impressions of that product.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that I got a heck of a deal because I was able to use 55,000 Alaska Airlines mileage miles to book that. So that availability when it first opened up. But Chicago to London on the Dreamliner the 787-9. And a lot of people have criticized this new cabin. I think it's fabulous. So the doors worked. Apparently, a lot of the planes haven't gotten approval to use the suite doors yet, but my suite doors worked fine. Food and drink was great. Service was really good. And I think the cabin is absolutely gorgeous. There's been some criticism because the screens don't move around. And, United unveiled its new product at the same time, and people thought the United suite was sexier. I disagree. And the fact that Americans are already flying this product is amazing to me. So, I'm a big American Airlines fan, despite the struggles they've had. And so I think this is a huge addition for them. And I highly recommend flying this product.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are a number of products that have been announced out there that aren't flying. And I'd take it even a step further. If I remember correctly, I saw a story from Ben at 1 Mile at a Time this week that American took their first A321XLR and had to park it because they don't have interiors for that plane. Delta has some planes that have interiors that are parked. So the fact that American is flying a new business class product is definitely sexier than announcing one and then parking the planes in a random desert somewhere without any seats on it.
Yeah, and remember, United's product is coming, but it's not. I mean, we're talking years. So it's not like it's already flying.
No, and I mean, look, these are complicated things. Don't get me wrong, but how long did we wait for Lufthansa's new product? So these things have an age on them, and I would say take whatever timeline United has put on their new seats, and I would add a year or two.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of delays with the American products too. So it's not
sure.
It's not like everything's going correctly, but
Yeah, they've had some teething issues, not only on the products, but there are a couple of 787s that they got delivered that were having some teething problems in terms of, maintenance issues. So, these are complicated planes, complicated seats. Since you used Alaska, I'm curious, do you happen to remember what you paid for surcharges on the 55,000?
I want to say
Roughly?
it was really reasonable, like $46 maybe.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was not high, but of course, coming back from London, it would have been much higher.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's what I was curious about because same thing. We used Alaska for our Japan trip in April, and that was the first time that that I'd really done Alaska redemptions, and I was really pleased with the fuel surcharge, the carrier imposed surcharges
yeah.
as they were. But I've heard from folks for a long time that Alaska's pretty reasonable about that stuff, and I think you and I would agree. Not very often you're going to find $50 in surcharges to get over to Europe.
Yeah, they do charge a partner award booking fee of like $12, I think, is what I paid for that. But apparently that's going to go away with their new premium credit card
Yep.
if you're a holder of that premium credit card. So I'm very eager. It was supposed to be summer, so summer's
Yeah.
getting a little long in the tooth already. So they need to roll that out because I want that sign up bonus and I want that premium card.
Yeah, no, and it's a card that I'm very interested in, and honestly, it was what I had targeted. I have given some thought to the Chase Sapphire for Business card just because the sign up bonus is so big, but I'm not sure I can get another Chase card at this point.
I was denied. It was the first time in years that I'd been denied for a credit card. They said, I'm sorry, you don't have enough business income to qualify.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm hopeful I have enough business income, but I'll tell you, I mean, just
You
just
more
my 2 cents.
for sure.
My relationship with Chase is not great. For years back when we used to bank with Chase, they've had a problem with two-factor authentication to my cell phone, and they won't use like Google Authenticate or anything else like that. So when I call in, because they can't auth to my phone, they have to hang up and call me back. And sometimes I get the call in a minute, sometimes I get the call in an hour or two. And the weirdest thing happened recently, and I still don't have an explanation on it. We opened up a new Chase Ink card for one of my businesses, and I mean, like, we run a lot of expenses through there. They're all legitimate expenses. I had a long relationship with Chase, but they started rejecting our payments, not transactions, but payments. And so we were making payments from the website, just ACHing out of the bank account, and those weren't working. So we tried sending one from our business bank. And then finally I got the phone and they claimed there were fraud issues. I got transferred. I mean, this was an hour and a half yesterday on the phone. And it's the second or third time it's happened where something gets flagged as fraud, maybe because we're charging so much and paying. I don't know. But when I pushed harder, I finally got a supervisor, 6 or 7 phone calls, hour and a half in, and she's like, well, there's a vague note here about award redemptions. Like, okay, can you tell me more? Because all of my Chase cards are tied to one login. And she says, well, did you transfer points? I'm like, well, yes. I mean, I do that a lot. And she says, well, that was what they flagged. I go, well, which one? I mean, I have, 3 or 4 ink cards. I've got my Chase Sapphire. And she says, I really can't tell you. So we went through every card one by one, verified all the award transactions. And after that entire painstaking process, she said, your accounts are cleared. And she was very polite till the very end. But then at the end, she goes, you should talk to the merchants that you're charging at so you don't have this problem. I'm like, I don't have a problem charging on the card. You're rejecting my payments. She goes, we don't reject payments, sir. I got these emails from you telling me you refused my payment. I don't know what to tell you. So it's been this weird loop with Chase, and I'm almost a little leery about another Chase card because the cards earn great, but their customer service is so frustrating.
Yeah, I actually have a couple friends who I recommended getting that huge sign up bonus for, and they're like, oh, our company won't use Chase because it's too much of a pain with verifications, fraud flags. They constantly, they said it's a barrier to business. And, you and I don't have time to sit on the phone with Chase for an hour and a half every time a transaction is declined. So, yeah, no, I hear that. I've had very good luck with Chase, not good, until they rejected me for the business card. But that's a story for another day.
Honestly, I wouldn't have spent an hour and a half on the phone with them, but we had gone through 3 different ways to pay the bill, and then they locked all of my accounts. So at that point, it was like, all right, well, I'm out of options. I have to at this point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all right. Well, enough about me and my Chase issues. I want to hear about Slovenia because this is a country that I have not been to. And while I did notch not a new country, but a new place in Sardinia recently, Slovenia's been on my radar for a while. Not a place you hear about a ton for folks who aren't looking at a map right now. To the northeast of Italy, sort of nestled in between Croatia and what, Austria to the north.
Italy to the south.
Yep.
Yeah, they share borders with Austria,
Yep.
Italy. I'm missing one. There's another country too, or maybe
Hungary.
Hungary. No,
Hungary
I
would
don't
be
know.
to the east, right? I think.
Anyway,
Let's
it's
pull
it's
up
in
a
the
map.
middle of Europe, and it's been in the middle of Europe for hundreds upon hundreds of years, part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire,
Yep.
and it's been, it's had a lot of interesting folks overseeing it over the years.
Yeah.
But interestingly, they weren't really a part of the Warsaw Pact, so they were sort of non-aligned. They were aligned with the Soviet Union, but not exactly part of the Soviet Union. So they've got a really interesting history. But it's the immaculately beautiful place. So it was never bombed during World War II, at least the capital
Okay.
bombed, and so it's preserved, which is remarkable. They've got a great old town in the capital, and then Lake Bled is like a 50-minute drive from Ljubljana. I'm not pronouncing that right. That's
Ljubljana. Yeah,
Ljubljana.
I looked it up before because I saw it on your Instagram feed, and I'm like, I am going to butcher the pronunciation of this if I don't look it up before the show.
I listened to how to pronounce it 100 times, and then I had a tour guide who walked me through it, and I still mess it up because all those J's we're just not used to in English.
Yes, I agree.
The capital is beautiful, and then Lake Bled is a short drive away. A spectacular lake. There's a castle on a cliff overlooking this church that's on an island in the middle of the lake. Absolutely gorgeous. Not crowded, which is remarkable for this time of year in Europe. And it can get hot, but it's a little cooler than places like Spain, Italy. So you got a little relief, and it's cheaper. So this is the selling point for me. And it was country number 62 for me, 62 or 64 or 63. I can't really keep track anymore. My various tracking tools are failing me.
God,
But
I love you.
it's a really cheap place, and I'm going to actually write a story for the Points Guy about it, because the Intercontinental in Ljubljana is only about 250 to 300 a night, where that same hotel in Paris or Rome would be 1,000, 1,500 a night this time of year.
Sure.
So these
Yeah.
secondary cities can be spectacular bargains. I flew British Airways from London to the capital, and then I flew KLM Cityhopper back to Amsterdam from there. Lots of flights, brand new airport that was built during the pandemic, or at least a new terminal. Charming people, friendly. Prices are really remarkably low, considering it's a European city in the summertime.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the prices I was paying in Rome for a secondary property were pretty significant. So something we're going to
And shout out to Luxury Slovenia. They did the tour for me.
Mm-hmm.
They packed a lot into the day trip, and it was just really wonderful. They all speak English. They start English in first grade, so there's no language barrier. Everyone's friendly, and that Intercontinental Hotel is really nice. Great spa, decent cash rates. I think I paid $250 a night, but it can go as high as $500. But best hotel, I think, in the city.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those places that has a core properties. And I think my recent experience with a core on my trip definitely that's one of the programs I would look into to consider for for trying to use points in cities like that. I was really impressed. Initial reports from Richard overseas too. His first redemptions on the core program have been pretty positive as well. I think we're both pleasantly surprised by the usefulness of the program.
Yeah, it's something I got to explore, because apparently there's a promo right now between all the core and Air France Flying Blue, celebrating 25 years of Flying Blue. So I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, and for folks who are thinking about going to Slovenia, I just pulled up a map on flightsfrom.com, which is what I use regularly to try to figure out how to get from here to there. Flights, I see multiple dots in Paris and London, so that tells me that there's low-cost carriers that are flying to Ljubljana. I see Amsterdam, I see Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Madrid. So lots of different ways to get there. Poland, Istanbul, Turkish, so definitely a bunch of different ways to get there, and with multiple airports. I'm looking here, like Gatwick, I would imagine. Yep, easy. So EasyJet covers it. So should be an affordable destination for folks to get to, and according to our good friend Clint, an affordable place once you get there.
Yeah, and I was going to drive. Actually, I was going to go try to do Slovakia on this trip too, but I came back early to do that Alaska HQ tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to drive because it's not a long drive, and you can drive all over that part of Europe and hit a bunch of countries. And Venice is 2 hours away or something like that. So lots and lots of stuff. Salzburg is really close, which I've never been to. So when I go back, I'm going to rent a car and then just drive and see a little bit more of the country.
Those are the things you mentioned that was appealing to me. One of the things we talked about, because Venice is one of the places I love. And so we actually, I'd like to do another trip to Venice and then sort of like drive around the Horn, if you will. You go around oh gosh, what is it? Is it the Adriatic Sea?
Yep. And
so you go around the Adriatic. So we almost went to Slovenia when we were in Salzburg a number of years ago, but we ended up heading to Vienna instead. So definitely something that's been on my radar.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. Apparently, there's a train now that goes around that area down the coast, and then of course you're close to Croatia, Montenegro.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very central place to plan a trip to, and the roads are great. So rental cars, I priced rental cars; they were really cheap. So great spot to visit.
Yeah, and a ton of great wine regions over there as well, which is
oh yeah, that's what I want to say. They do have a little sliver of coast that I didn't get to see. With they don't have a lot of beaches because it's a lot of cliffs, but
yeah,
it looked really beautiful from the pictures I saw.
Yeah. All right, well, let's close the full loop. I am jealous that you got to grab another Delft house on your way home, and you teased me with a text of your. For folks who don't know, this is there's an app that KLM has separate from the regular app where you can notch all the houses in your collection. And Clint sent me a screenshot of his with all of the various houses. Yeah.
So this is my latest Delft house. It's house number 58. So I flew KLM. I used 81,000 Flying Blue miles. KLM Cityhopper.
Yep.
From Ljubljana to Amsterdam. And then the Boeing Dreamliner 787-10 to JFK. So on the short hop, it was an hour and 15-minute flight. They did a full meal service. I was one of only 4 people in the little front business class cabin. It was an Embraer 175 ER, 195 ER, new plane, tiny little business class, but 2x2 rows on those planes. And so it's a really comfortable way to fly. And I couldn't believe full meal service. Get to Amsterdam. In the Crown Lounge, they have a really cool thing where you can trade in your old duplicate Delft houses. And so I brought in this one, which I actually have a duplicate of. My ex-boyfriend gave me, used to go to the flea market here in New York and bought me KLM houses. So I had an extra one. So I brought it, but you can see there's no gin inside because someone drank it before they sold it. You can't exchange a used house, so they have to still have the gin inside.
Really?
So even the ones you get from flights to places like Saudi Arabia, if you get a Delft house, you can't trade those in because obviously those are dry countries where they don't allow you to have gin. And so they'll only accept Delft houses that still have the gin inside that are still sealed properly. So I failed in my mission to get another addition to my collection, but they said this one is actually an antique. So I thought that was pretty cool. He said, go ahead and keep it. So I did. So now I've got 2, and you can see behind me, I think on that row, I think right about 30 of them now. So not all from flying. So
it's funny because I was looking for my collection, but I realized we have it out on a rail in the kitchen, so I'll have to bring mine in. And I would just say that I'll check my records, but if I don't have 58, I would be happy to buy your spare from you for whatever the going rate on eBay is.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
I might even gift it to you.
If you're, maybe we can even do swapsies because I think I have a couple of doubles too. So maybe I have a double you don't have. We create a little swap culture for KLM Delft houses.
But KLM is the service I always find is fantastic. The meals are excellent. They serve all the meals on this beautiful Delftware dishes that I wanted to put in my bag, but I didn't. I'm a good boy, but the most darling little cups and saucers and everything. And they do a full meal service, and then they do a second meal service before landing. And then after all the meal services are done, they bring chocolates at one point, and then someone comes out with a giant tray of Delft houses and they let you pick from the tray. And there's an app you can download and where you can sort of show your collection off. So it's really fun. Great service. The one thing I would say about the flight was meal service took a really long time. So they didn't clear plates till about 2.5 hours after we took off. So if you want to sleep, that's going to be kind of annoying. And I assume meal service would be faster on the overnight flight from the US, but I thought that was a little strange how slow service was. And to be honest, service was really slow on that new American Airlines plane too. But you know why? Because they have 52 business class seats and they just don't have enough flight attendants to get the meal service out. So meal service on an overnight flight from Chicago to London on that American Airlines plane, 2 hours, 2.5 hours for meal service. So your sleep time is very limited. So those are two things. And then the final thing I'll complain about with KLM is this was the amenity kit. It's just really ugly. It looks like, I don't know, like a loofah or something. It's not the things you'd expect in it, but I was really excited to replace this one from a couple of years ago, which I loved, which is a collaboration with Rituals, because this one's getting a little worse for wear, and I was hoping to get a new replacement. I'm definitely not going to use this loofah as a bag. Though that's the idea, is to reuse them. I don't know. Everyone's trying to be environmentally conscious, which I appreciate, but
yeah,
you got to step up the amenity kit game.
I wonder, we on our way back from Japan, my wife talked about how long the meal service was. I've seen this stretch out in other business class flights we've been on. And I mean, the in a lot of cases, the premium cabins on these flights have grown, not just business class, but, the advent of true premium economy products for international flights. And it definitely doesn't feel like the staffing levels have caught up in terms of what I've read from a reporting standpoint. In some cases, the meals have gotten a little bit more intricate. Now, United famously dialed back from that when they released wine flights and stuff like that when they first came out with Polaris back when Oscar Munoz ran the airline.
Yeah.
But there are little bits and pieces that have been added to meals. Like, for example, when we flew back on United, there was you had a choice of appetizers along with your entree. And so like then they got the nuts and all that stuff. And so there's just a lot of intricacies to get the plates put together. And that's likely leading to some of these increases in service times. Because I saw the same thing on our flight back from United too. It just takes longer for them to get through the cabin, which at least for me is why I generally bail on food when it's an overnight flight.
Yeah, I'm reviewing the flight on American for the points guy, so I needed to try all the meals. So that was part of it too. I could have had one tray or eaten in the flagship lounge ahead of time. So that's something to think about. And this is a new plane. A lot of these flight attendants have never worked these planes before, so it takes some time to learn the new sort of layouts and everything. And it's a lot of seats, 52 business class seats. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you have a couple people that want to get their meal at a different time, or somebody needs a drink, or somebody's causing an issue, like all those things add up from a timing standpoint, for sure.
Yep.
All right, well, let's talk a bit. We got a listener question for Slack, and I've got a Hertz thing that I want to run by you, but I want to talk a little bit about, you teased this when we were texting back and forth on topics, about your conversations with Google Travel.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that piqued my interest is, we kind of flagged that the Google Travel had started to fiddle around a bit with basic economy filters. Because, as you well know, our friend Julian Keel, founder of PointsPath, he's got a product that overlays Google Flights, and so Basic Economy was very interesting to me in terms of their layout and how that would all impact. But it didn't seem like it had been broadly rolled out, and it sounds like in one of your recent conversations with Google Travel that you got some intel on what they're thinking there.
Yeah, because I heard some rumblings that some people had access to for the ability within Google Flights to filter out basic economy. So Google right now shows you in Google Flights, which is the most amazing tool I've ever used in travel, by the way. That and PointsPath is my win-win system for finding flights. But basically, it shows you basic economy fares. So it might show you fares like New York to San Francisco. Oh my God, it's only $250. But then when you click through, you realize, oh, that's basic economy, which is, I'm not interested in basic economy. Richard had the ability briefly, I think maybe he still does, to add one of the many filters that's in Google Flights to screen out basic economy, showing you full cabin fares. which was excellent. I couldn't wait for it to happen. So when I heard Richard had access, I was like, usually Google Flights, because I write so much about them, tells me ahead of time if they're going to roll something out like this. So
Yeah.
I knew it probably wasn't the case since I hadn't heard from them. So I interviewed Mr. Byers, who's works for Google Travel, and we had a great conversation about myth busting and some of the really cool undiscovered tools at Google Flights. But I also asked them about basic economy. And I'm like, look, this, you guys, we've heard about the possibility of this for a long time. Are you ready to talk about it? And he said, nope, it's still in testing phase. They're not even sure if they're going to roll it out fully ever. So, I think it's a wait and see at this point. But he did promise me that the points guy would be among the first to hear about this. So I'm hoping that that's still a possibility that will roll out, because I think that will help a lot of us who regularly use the tool.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that they don't have the filter, and I've tried to brainstorm on reasons why they wouldn't have rolled it out. Maybe the complexity in finding the fares and how different airlines load them, but it would seem like a logical filter.
I think it's because they want to be able to show you the cheapest flights, right? And the cheapest flights are obviously going to be basic economy. So just from a, consumer point of view, you're more likely to keep on clicking into if you're seeing the cheapest, absolute cheapest bottom of the barrel. So I'm sure it's like sort of a balancing act between that and making the tool more useful. But if it's a tool that you can just toggle, then that shouldn't make that big a difference.
Well, I think you keyed on something earlier. You talked about how it's one of your go-to tools and it's one of your favorites. And to that point, like I go back to the days of the old ITA matrix system, which Google acquired and folded in some of those ITA matrix tools into Google Flights to make it more powerful. And I would just say, absolutely, for the entry level user who flies once or twice a year, you'd want to show them the cheapest prices. For folks like you or I who fly, more than dozens of times a year, it would seem that would be a really good customizable feature to create or to increase the stickiness that you and I have with their product.
Absolutely. And, I think, he highlighted and I highlighted in this, I'm going to publish a story on Monday about it on the Points Guy, but we actually did an interview, and I'm going to post the whole interview so you can listen to some of our myth busting and, some of the tools that we both love. But the Google Flights Explorer is my greatest secret. You can just put in your home airport. It'll show you an interactive map all over the world. So I love those tools. The other thing that we talked about, though, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this, is the advent of artificial intelligence in pricing tickets. And so he said AI is going to be a bigger and bigger part of everything we do when it comes to travel, but he wasn't too worried that it was going to actually impact pricing that much. But I'm curious to know what you think, since Delta says by the end of the year, they want to have a fifth of their flights, sort of programmed by artificial intelligence.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've thought about this a bunch. I've read the same things you read about Delta wanting to increase. I think they're at 2 or 3% now, and they want to get to 10 or 15% is their next sort of hurdle. I think a couple of things. First off, I would just say, maybe this is like the pedantic day job investor side of me. I don't really view, like, I guess it may be in like a very general sense, I would refer to this as quote unquote AI. This to me seems like machine learning. It says, all right, well, Clint Henderson has navigated to our site 6 times, and he's bought 3 tickets, and he buys them on Tuesdays, and he buys one way. Like they assemble a profile, and then they look at that profile and say, well, what other profiles does Clint Henderson look like? And so I would say at a high level, I would say I don't know that there's a lot of actual AI yet. I think when I think about AI in this space, it's about predictive analytics. It's saying, well, what's Clint Henderson going to do next? And because the machine learning part is, let's just say they offered you a price that's $30 higher next time and you don't buy it. Well, to me, that feature loop would be machine learning. Offer to, put out a response, saw if user took the response, and then altered the model based on that. When I think of AI, I think of things like, the system being able to come up with new and different ways to price things to attract you to it. So maybe you get shown an upgrade at a different spot than I do, or maybe you're served information about the likelihood that the upgrade is going to sell out, or they talk to you about the seat map or other things. Because maybe I'm the old curmudgeon in the room. I think that When I think about disruption in travel, if Delta starts offering a different price to you and to me, I think two things will happen in fairly short order. The first off is smart, savvy folks will just, surf in incognito mode or find other ways to find the fares or use a different browser or build a
search.
Yeah, exactly. Build a low tech model to get the best pricing. It's a public offered product. It's going to be hard to offer you and I two different prices. The other thing is we've seen all these products that have popped up, card pointers, SaveWise, all these different tools that we use to help us on the points and miles side of the world. If we really were getting served different prices, I would imagine that would be a very ripe environment for startups to start saying, well, let's start pulling together the information from the GDSs and let's tell Clint what the true price of his flight is. And so I do think that I do think there's probably something coming here, but I don't think it will be. I have trouble seeing a world where the vast majority of airline pricing will be different because of AI. The pricing might be set because of AI, but I think if they truly offer road warriors different pricing, they'll figure it out. And so I think that this model really is constrained to some degree to occasional travelers. Because think about it this way. Remember, gosh, it's probably only been a month or two when they came out with the whole, if you buy 2 tickets instead of 1, you get a discount on the second ticket thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like this massive uproar from
or a solo traveler will pay more than a couple.
Right, exactly. And there was like this massive uproar and pretty much everybody rolled it back. I think America might still be fiddling around with it a little bit.
I think it's come back for all of them, to be honest.
Has it come back for all? I just feel like with things like this over time, I think you're going to get pushback from customers who are saying like, why should I pay a different price than Clint? What's the logic there?
They could also run afoul of federal government regulators.
Of course.
Price collusion. So there's lots of issues to consider. And it sounds to me like Delta right now is only using it in the place of like revenue management. So they are sort of using AI to better price, but not giving Ed a one price and me one price. My fear is that it becomes, oh, Clint is a Delta Diamond. He's bought all these expensive tickets with this, so we're going to offer him a higher price than they are, Joe Blow, who doesn't fly with Delta that often. What I'm hopeful, though, is if there is truly fair personalization, that they're giving a discount to new customers or they're offering cheaper upgrades to me. So there is ways it could benefit consumers. We just have to watch it carefully, and they have to really be careful of not making it, not punishing their more loyal customers, because that's really what this is ideally set up for, right? I go to Delta 20 times a month, so they're going to charge me more than someone who's just logging in for the first time. But the other thing that could happen is Delta could say, if you agree to be subject to AI pricing and use your logged in Delta SkyMiles information, maybe we offer you a 10% discount on fares if we're able to, or, some elite status perk or some MQD bonus, whatever it is, if you're willing to be subject to AI pricing. So I think there's lots of interesting ways this could shake out.
Definitely a lot of interesting ways it could shake out. I would say, I think the model has existed for quite some time on the pricing side. They just haven't done it on the base fare. I think United has been famous for offering different upgrade prices to different elite levels for flights. And typically speaking, offering much cheaper upgrades to occasional travelers, because they believe the business traveler has more tolerance to pay that upgrade price. And so I think they've always tried to preserve that frontline pricing, mostly because so many people use GDS-based systems, online travel agencies like Booking.com and Expedia and Google Flights, to pick flights that they want the price to show up well in a pricing engine, and they find other ways to create segmentation, charging for upgrades, things of that nature. So it's an interesting world coming, and I like you, I'm fascinated by it well before I get annoyed by whatever's coming for charging me more. I'm just fascinated by how this will impact travelers and what this will ultimately look like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's already changing everything so quickly. It's hard to even keep up right now. So I can only imagine how much faster it's going to speed up next few years.
Yeah, I want to touch on one thing for our Slack community, and then I've got a question that I didn't actually give you ahead of time. So I'm going to put you on the spot to ask you your opinion on something. And it's an interesting customer behavior thing. But anyway, for folks who are new to the show, we have a Slack community where you can support us for the couple of bucks a month. We have weekly happy hours. We have some meetups coming up, and we have a bunch of folks on there that are really helpful answering questions, including myself, Mr. Kerr. Mr. Henderson said earlier that he's going to come on one of those happy hours soon. So we've got folks there that can help you answer questions. A couple of new members, LB, Jim B. We now have a Jim A and a Jim B in the Slack community. We have one person who's registered just under the number 5. Jessica A and Renee are all longtime supporters of the community. But Nate, who's also been around for a while, had something that he surfaced that I want to make sure we talk to listeners about, because we talked about the Chase Sapphire changes when it comes to using your Ultimate Rewards points for bookings on the Chase travel portal, but we didn't talk about the ink cards. And so when I saw Nate's comment in Slack, it brought up this point that not only are the Chase Sapphire cards changing, but the ink cards are as well. So Chase Ink Preferred, which I have a couple of those in my wallet, will lose the ability to redeem points at that higher threshold for points that you earn after October 25th of this year. And I took a look because I couldn't remember that card well off the top of my head. That's a 3x card on shipping, advertising purchases, internet, cable, and phone services, and travel. So, most of the folks that have that card are probably focusing in that travel bucket. I use it for all 4 of those buckets. It's a combined $150,000 in purchases amongst those different categories on a yearly basis. And so 3x on travel is still a really solid number. But we're still, I think, in the early stages of points boost as to whether or not it is a valuable enough replacement to being able to book at the increased range on the Chase travel portal.
Yeah, and in fact, I had not been using my Ink Business Preferred at all until recently when I realized, wait, I can get 3 times points on that Ink card. I've been using my Chase Sapphire Preferred where I get 2 times points. So really remarkable earnings, which I just realized I've had that card forever. So I love that card. I just got the letter in the mail yesterday about the points boost stuff. So I have not explored that. Summer Hull, who's I know a friend of yours, has raved about the points boost capability. So there's definitely something there. I have not looked into it myself, so I'm not an expert on it by any stretch of the imagination, but I imagine you can squeeze a lot of value out of it if you play it right. But again, it's the sort of trend of couponization where you have to do so much research and be so knowledgeable. I cover this for a living that I can't keep up. Like the fact that I have a card that I just discovered has 3 times on travel that's been in my wallet for literally 5-6 years speaks to this. I have spreadsheets. I track all this stuff. I don't want to have to fight for value. Stop making me work so much. It's supposed to be fun. It's not. So that's my rant.
Well, I agree with you on a number of different levels, but I would base it, if you want to boil it down to one thing, it's, with these cards, a lot of the reason why I recommended the Chase cards, both on the personal side for Sapphire and on the business side for Ink, was if you never used the transfer capabilities, you had this nice safety net. So to your point, if you had a card like this where you're 3 points per dollar on shipping, advertising, internet, cable, phone, travel, and you're a business owner, well, you're probably not putting all of your spend in the 3x buckets, but there's probably enough of it in there that you're going to end up at this blended, call it 2 points per dollar, maybe 2.5 points per dollar of spending on the card, which I think you and I would both agree is sort of like table stakes for where you want to be, because you could get a 2% cashback card and that's easy because it's just set it and forget it. And the reason why the Sapphire cards and the Ink cards appealed to me was, if I knew you were earning at roughly 2 to 2.5 points per dollar, and you had this 1.25 cent or 1.5 cent option always available to you for whatever you needed in Chase Travel, you were never going to get huge outsized value for your points, but you were never going to do worse than a cashback card. So if you didn't want to dig in at the level that a Clint Henderson or an Ed Pizza did, these cards would give you a leg up on cashback, because you'd probably be in the 2.5 to 3% effective cashback range using Chase Travel at 1.25 cents. By pulling that back, like you said, it makes it harder. Like you could find value, but most people aren't transferring to the carriers right now to get the most value. And most people aren't going to spend the time looking at points boost. So yeah, I do think it is a general loss.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I'm tired of working so hard for all these things, Just trying to maximize my Delta Reserve card, get the rideshare credit, get the food credit every month, make sure I do the Delta stay. I almost forgot about that one, $200 for a Delta stay.
Yeah.
Then I'm losing the Hyatt points because I'm booking through Delta stays instead of Hyatt. My Amex, which I've kind of mastered by now, but so complicated. And I was kind of excited about maybe getting the Chase Sapphire Reserve business card, but I was also dreading sort of, oh my God, Grubhub, or is it Stop and Shop, or is it, DoorDash, what? It's a lot to keep track of. And, I have 27 credit cards. So, it could become a full-time job. So I'm actually considering scaling some of this back just because I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm gonna scale some back as well myself. I haven't done it yet, but it's on my list to do when things slow down a little bit. All right, so here's my quick question on the way out. It involves Hertz, which, as you well know, is a fairly polarizing company in the travel space, and I have been a passionate Hertz supporter for a number of years, mostly because for a long time I was a Hertz Platinum member, and that was one of the best loyalty statuses I'd ever had. I am just a plain old President Circle member now, which, pretty much anyone with a Venture X card gets to be that. And I've had this happen a couple of times with Hertz over the years, and I'm just not sure which direction I want to go with this. So quick question for you. We rented cars in Sardinia just because it seemed to make the most sense. And we ended up having to rent 2 cars because there were 6 of us. We took my cousin and her daughter, and they couldn't guarantee me anything that had a third row of seats, and we had all the luggage. And so I'm like, all right, we'll rent 2 cars. I found some affordably enough on Capital One Travel, but because I rented 2, I needed to have the second car in someone else's name. And so we had a little bit of a thing when we got there, in that my wife didn't have her Capital One card when we showed up, and they had to have a card that matched her name there. So we had to switch it to a card that didn't have insurance coverage on it. And so we had to elect their insurance, which, like, okay, my bad, like, travel expert screwed up. But what I found with a lot of Hertz locations outside of the US, their franchises, they sort of play fast and loose with the rules, maybe even faster and looser than Hertz does in the US. So they charged my wife's card for a full tank of gas, and they told me that if I didn't bring back my tank with a full tank of gas, they would charge me for a full tank. But because they weren't charging me ahead of time because I was a Hertz Gold member and my status showed up on the reservation. Okay, like, I didn't love that they charged us for the full tank of gas ahead of time, but I didn't have a choice. We're only 3 days in Sardinia, got to work this out, let's get going. We returned both cars in the morning before Hertz opens. We dropped the keys in the bin. I did not take a picture of the gas gauges. I always take full video of the car, including the roof, which is a great tip for folks, especially with all the AI agents that are coming out now to scan for dents. Always take video of your entire car. I get 2 charges on my Cap One card, both for full tanks of gas on both cards. Both cars were full. And so here's my question, because I haven't done anything with it yet. It's only a couple days old. Do I go through the rigmarole of calling Hertz to try and get these charges worked out? Or do I just protest both charges on the card and say that they're not valid charges?
Definitely just dispute the charges.
That's where I was leaning. I just, I'll be curious.
I'm a huge Hertz fan. Similar to you, I have top tier status through my American Express Platinum card. I've had no problems with Hertz. I've covered Hertz. I covered when they rolled out the AI scanning thing, and I'm not opposed to it. I haven't had any bad experiences with them trying to arrest me for not returning the car, as some people have. So I'm a big Hertz fan, but customer service is terrible. Trying to get a hold of anyone. Now with the new AI thing, you're not interacting with anyone, so you can't dispute it if you get a flag from a dent on the car from them. So, but I've tried to call them before to fix my elite tier status, and I couldn't ever reach a human. And so I just would dispute the charge and let the credit card company deal with it.
Yeah, that's the way I leaned. Same with you. I had a recent interaction with Hertz where I left something in a car and I couldn't get anybody on the phone. And I finally went back to Vegas a second time a few days later because I've been traveling quite a bit. And I walked up to the counter and finally got a human. And the answer was, well, sir, it's not our responsibility. You shouldn't be leaving stuff in our car. That was the full human element that I got. So, I'll be honest, like between that interaction, which just happened right before we left for Europe, and what happened on the recent European trip, I just booked national the last two times. It was two bad experiences in a row with Hertz. I've had a great relationship with them over the years, but they really kicked me in the groin on these past two things. And I just said, well, until we sort it out, national is a left-hand turn when I walk into the terminal at Vegas car rental facility, and Hertz is a right-hand turn. So I just took a left the last couple times.
So the only thing I find with national is the prices are usually like, I would say 100% higher. Every time I've searched, they're usually about 100% higher than Hertz. So that's why I stuck with Hertz. But similar to Hertz, national, I have status through national with my American Express Platinum card. So if I'd had a bad experience with Hertz, or if it was the same price, I definitely would have chosen national. In fact, I had national booked in Europe on this trip. But I ended up canceling the reservation because I had to come back early, because in Europe, I found the prices were actually cheaper than Hertz. So
interesting.
Mileage may vary.
Yeah, prices have been pretty close for me on these two, but it's really a subset of two. So
it's probably just Hawaii that I'm looking the most time. So that's when I really find
I love that. Just Hawaii.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I love that you came on. I also love that you just like very casually dropped, oh, I had to come back early from Europe to go tour Alaska headquarters and spend time at Boeing.
Humble brag.
Yeah, not so humble brag.
I will say just a couple quick things. Obviously, I'm writing about this Google thing, which will be a fun story for folks to read.
Which we will include in the show notes for sure.
Okay, good. And then a couple hotel recommendations. I stayed at the Bankside, which is an autograph collection hotel in London, right near the Tate.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best hotel experiences I've ever had. And, that's saying a lot for London, especially. I was able to use my free night certificate from having the Bonvoy Brilliant card. Points bookings rates there are usually around 81,000 a night, which is not bad for London. And charge rates were $600 a night. So that gives you an idea. So that was a great value. Customer service was great. Early check-in, late check-out. They were really good to me. Highly recommend. I'm going to write about that hotel for the Points guy. The Intercontinental in Ljubljana. Ljubljana was a great value, and you can book that with points. And then the Kimpton Fitzroy London, fabulous hotel. I found an okay rate. It's really expensive, but it was another really nice hotel in London. And of course, I stayed at the Andaz Liverpool, which was
love that property. Yeah,
only 25,000 a night. It's getting a little shop worn now, but it's still a great hotel and a great location. So
no, I like that location. They've been really good to me too. I've got a couple of nice upgrades the couple times I've stayed there. So
didn't get upgraded, but
well, you're not me. I'm lifetime globalist, man. Come on. I guess spot to park my giraffe. All right, Mr. Henderson, it is always great to have you on. We keep threatening to have you and Richard on at the same time so the three of us can enjoy some time together. I hope that our schedules actually mesh for that in the future, because I would enjoy that. I always enjoy having
that would be
on the
fun.
show.
And, I'm working with Julian a lot on Points Path data, so it would be fun to have Julian, Summer, you, and me all doing a little shout fest.
Yep, I love it. All right, well, safe travels. I will live vicariously through your Alaska HQ tour and some time at Boeing. I myself headed to the lake for a couple of days. We'll be back by the time this drops, and then a steady diet of Vegas for the next 2 months as we get ready to open our flagship location on the Strip in Las Vegas. So if you're coming to Vegas anytime soon, Mr. Henderson, or anybody who's out there listening or watching, let me know, and I'd be happy to raise your cholesterol and buy you a burger.
May the travel gods be ever in your favor.
May they ever be in my favor. I had an hour-and-a-half delay on my way home, which brings my total to over 17 hours of delays in the first half of the year. Definitely not going my way. Certainly hoping for better in the second half of the year. Until we upload again, Mr. Henderson, we've got miles to go.
All right, so
the wonders of New York City living.
And my apartment's only this big, so
yes, yeah, right, yeah.
It's literally like a tiny New York hotel.
Love it.